Salutations friends, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to take you on a little bit of a deep dive into my fragrance collection. I'm going to share with you some of my favorites from my collection. This isn't a top 10 list. Some of the fragrances in this list are not part of my top 10 and some of my top 10 are not part of this list. But I figured I get asked a lot, what's my favorite this, what's my favorite this, what's my favorite this scent, what would I recommend for this? And I thought it would be fun to kind of take you on a little bit of a journey and share some of the more frequently asked questions and recommendations and some questions I see asked on other content creators' channels and share with you guys those scents today. So it's going to be a chit-chatty video, it's going to be a longer video. I'm going to be getting into why I chose the fragrances that I did. So let's get into the video. If I have any reviews of any of these fragrances, I will most definitely link them below. And I have a few videos where I take you on a tour, a recent tour of my collection, a fragrance Q&A, all of relevant videos, referenced videos, I will have those all linked below. Now the reason why I wanted to do this is because I think this would be fun. So I thought about this for a few days and thought about which types of scents I wanted to share with you guys. So it's not just like my favorite gourmand, my favorite vanilla, my favorite this. In fact, I don't think I have those. But more so like what's my most complimented fragrance, what's my favorite white floral, and my favorite discontinued scent, my favorite iris, things like that. So we're going to get into that. Now the first one we're going to talk about is Terracotta Les Parfums from Guerlain. This is my most complimented fragrance from my collection and one of my favorites. Now the reason why I think this is my most complimented is just the way that this fragrance smells is really complimentary, attractive, and just smells really sexy on the skin. It's one of those white floral fragrances that really takes charge. And I remember every time, and I still do, anytime I use Guerlain's Terracotta bronzers, it's one of my favorite bronzers, I smell it. And sometimes my nose will get brown. That sounds weird, like a brown nose, because I will just smell the bronzer before I use this product. It just smells so intoxicating, so beautiful, and so captivating. And it's really beautifully represented in this gorgeous fragrance right here. And when you wear this on your skin, there's something about it that's just really beautiful and transportive and just really, really sexy. And I think if you're looking for a sexy white floral fragrance, I don't think you can go wrong with this one. And at the end of the day, it is my most complimented fragrance. Pretty much every time I wear this, I will get an unsolicited compliment from a stranger, which means it's not a compliment from my mom, it's not a compliment from somebody I know. If I'm wearing this at the grocery store, if I'm wearing this to go shopping for maybe I need new clothes, or if I'm picking up some medication from the pharmacy, somebody that I've never met before will compliment me on my fragrance and say it smells really, really good. From both genders, men and women. Some people are younger, some people are older. So when I say that this is my most complimented scent, I want you guys to know this is coming from a variety of people across the board. And it's just something about it is so beautiful. And it is also one of the fragrances that is just my most favorite in my collection. If I had to pare down my collection, where I had to say maybe get down to like 20 to 30 bottles over the, I think, 1,040 I have now, this would not be going away. This would be staying in my collection. So this is a forever fragrance to me. It is absolutely gorgeous and I love it. Speaking about white florals, my favorite white floral fragrance in my collection is I finally purchased this bottle and I just reviewed it the other day. This is from Ducy de Paris and this is Melody de l'Amour. Now, this has been a must-buy for me. I did a first impression of this fragrance, I would say over 5 years ago. And when I first smelled this, I was captivated, blown away, absolutely beautiful. I love gardenia. Gardenia is one of those notes that I just love smelling. I know it's really hard to capture gardenia in a perfume, and I think it's done so successfully and purposefully here. And what I mean by that is sometimes when you have a gardenia note or a gardenia dominant note in a fragrance, it can almost smell muddy, it can smell lost, it can smell like a hodgepodge of different white florals. and you kind of lose that spicy, sexy meatiness that gardenia can have, and it's beautifully represented in this fragrance, along with the other notes like the musks and the cedarwood and everything else that just makes this fragrance shine. And so what I love about this fragrance specifically is the fact that it is just so beautiful and smells so gorgeous on the skin without losing its gorgeous allure, and it's just basically its tribute to white florals. And it's been something I've loved for years. So this is most definitely my favorite white floral dominant fragrance, specifically centering on gardenia, but there's some other beautiful florals in here as well. I'm going to talk about another white floral, but I wanted to specifically focus not on white florals, but on this specific white floral is Jasmine. And I think you guys all know what this one is. This is in my top 5 fragrances, and it is from Royal Crown, and it's Oud Jasmine. Now, if you're familiar with my channel, you know very much how I feel about this. It is the fragrance of my dreams, just like gardenia is the fragrance that I would go to school, I would wake up, I would smell gardenia in the morning, and I would go to sleep to the smell of jasmine. There's something so captivating and beautiful about Oud Jasmine from Royal Crown. It is a very expensive fragrance, but in my opinion, it is something really beautiful, and this is one that I absolutely love. Now, what I like about this is it has all the beautiful nuances of oud without the challenging parts of oud, and I myself do not mind a challenging oud fragrances. The funky parts of oud out there I find to be quite beautiful and gorgeous on the skin. I don't mind a challenging oud. However, I think that if this was a more challenging oud and less of this kind of like silky, exotic, alluring oud, you would lose the beauty of the jasmine and all the other gorgeous notes in here. I find this to be perfectly blended and balanced and to be a gorgeous experience, and it is such a gorgeous jasmine. It's so beautiful, and I love this one so much. So this is my most favorite jasmine in my collection and one of my top 5 fragrances. Now, if you're familiar with my channel, you know one of my favorite notes is vetiver, and so I think most of you guys know what fragrance is coming up next. This is another top 5 fragrance. This is a holy grail fragrance of mine, and this fragrance I quite literally talk about a lot. This is also my most sad discontinued fragrance. So this fragrance takes 2 spots, and it is Sycomore from Chanel, the Eau de Toilette. Now, I've talked about it before. The Eau de Parfum version of Sycomore does reach the captivating beauty of the Eau de Toilette, in my opinion, but it takes a lot longer to reach that beautiful tribute to vetiver. So the Eau de Toilette, in my opinion, you get all these beautiful kind of dry and earthy and damp and vegetal and green and crisp and graspy. Everything vetiver can be, you get it in this scent, and you get it almost immediately, like within the dry down, like 25 to 30 minutes. It's just such a captivating fragrance and a must try for vetiver lovers. With the Eau de Parfum, it comes in stages, and when you kind of get the beautiful the entire experience of vetiver, it's after like 4 to 5 hours. So you get it at the end, and you get it all. So you get like a little bit of the dryness in the beginning, and then you might get a little bit of the earthiness like after 2 to 3 hours, and at the end everything kind of is like, here I am. I'm what I should have been before the discontinuation and reformulation, you know? Like, you can still experience the beauty of the Eau de Toilette, but you don't get it for nearly the same amount of time. And what I like in the Eau de Toilette of Sycomore is quite literally you get it immediately, and it lasts forever on your skin. Now, it might look like I don't wear the scent. That's because I'm protective of this fragrance. I have had people so mad at me because I will not swap decants. Normally, I'm super open to swapping decants, selling decants, doing things like that. There are like a few fragrances I don't do that with. I am protective of this until I can get a backup bottle, and I'm also very discerning of backup bottles too, so I haven't felt quite safe enough to purchase a backup bottle. So I'm very mindful when I wear this fragrance, but I do love this so much. It is the most beautiful, captivating vetiver fragrance in my opinion. It has yet to be dethroned, and I'm not looking for it to be dethroned. I'm not looking to fill the void of Sycomore. I mean, I would love to get more bottles of this, but I don't need this to be dethroned. It's perfect. It's fine. I'm happy with this. and I am sad that it is discontinued because it is my most favorite. However, it is so beautiful, so it is my favorite vetiver fragrance and my most sad discontinued scent, because I would quite literally wear this scent almost every single day if I could readily repurchase this. I have considered purchase a bottle of the Eau de Parfum and wearing that one because I do like the way that it smells, but it just breaks my heart to know how gorgeous and perfect this fragrance was. And then smelling the Eau de Parfum, like if I had never experienced this, I would probably love the Eau de Parfum version so much more, but it just makes me sad. So this is my most favorite vetiver fragrance, and also my most favorite and sadly disappointed, heartbroken discontinued. I think a lot of people are tired of flankers. Some people love flankers, some people hate flankers. I myself, if a flanker is done correctly, I love it. I think my most favorite flanker though has to be Chanel No. 5 L'Eau. Now the reason why I like this one is I think this is one of the most successful flankers out there. This also could have been Rose Explosion from Victor & Wolf, but when I think about a beautifully crafted and successful flanker, this one just to me is what it's supposed to be. So flankers can be a variety of different ways. They can be a unique spin on a scent, a la whatever Terry Mugler does with Angel. It can be a new formulation that has slightly different notes, a la whatever Dior does with Sauvage or Bleu de Chanel from Chanel. Now, what I like all of it. I don't mind a flanker as long as it has some sort of semblance or nod to the original. So one thing I hate was, with Versace's Dylan Blue, which I love, and Versace Turquoise Blue, or Dylan Turquoise, that one, Dylan Turquoise, because that one is a good fragrance, but it doesn't smell at all in reference to Dylan Blue, and I think that would have been so much better as part of the crystal family, like bright crystal or aqua crystal or something. I feel like it would have been so much more successful and would have felt less lazy. What I love about this particular fragrance is that it is such a beautiful representation of Chanel No. 5 done in a modern way without compromising a lot of the integrity of Chanel No. 5. Now, I did an entire video talking about the Chanel No. 5 family, or the current family, so I will link that video below. And Chanel No. 5 Premier to me is Chanel No. 5 with training wheels. A lot of the things that people don't like or find to be intimidating with Chanel No. 5, that's what Premier is tamed by. Those are removed, so it's easier to wear, but it's still very beautiful. I do love that fragrance a lot. What I love about this one is that it doesn't shy away from some of the parts of No. 5 that make it classic and beautiful and stand out, but it adds a beautiful modern twist to it. It's lighter and slightly fresher, but you still get that gorgeous, classic, beautifully sophisticated Chanel No. 5 DNA. And it's so wearable, and it's so gorgeous, and it's so sexy, and I love this so much. I cannot tell you how much I love this fragrance. And when I think about a perfect flanker, I think Chanel just did it perfectly with No. 5 L'Eau. And I think Premier was also a successful flanker too, because it was, again, taming a composition that some people might have been intimidated by or challenged by compositions like that. But what I like about L'Eau is it doesn't shy away from some of the beautiful rugged beauty. I won't say it was rugged, but there's a lot of aspects to classic compositions like Chanel No. 5 and Shalimar that people just don't like mature fragrances like that. And I think that you can embrace a lot of those characteristics in formulas and compositions, but still have a modern twist. And I think that this one does it beautifully and successfully and gorgeously, and I love it. It's so good. Now, if I had to choose my favorite oud fragrance, since we're talking about challenging and intimidating, this one I definitely have a personal hand-in bias with, and it's She from House of Matriarch. Now the reason why, first and foremost, if you're unfamiliar, this fragrance was inspired by me, by my friend Kristin West, who's the owner and matriarch of House of Matriarch. And years ago, I had posted a Facebook post talking about and lamenting the absence of citruses and ouds. And there are citruses and ouds out there, but there's not enough citruses and ouds out there. And Kristy had reached out to me and she's like, let's do this. And so we spent a decent amount of time talking and just collaborating and figuring out how we wanted to create a citrus oud fragrance that was beautiful and representative of what we enjoyed seeing in fragrances. And one thing that I love first and foremost is I love oud. I love smoky tea fragrances. I love things that are creamy and delicious, but still are bright and also are just sexy. And Kristy to me is a maverick and a Valkyrie when it comes down to creating beautiful experiences. And I love when she kind of combines like delicious scents with things that have a natural beauty, like using natural ingredients. So when she's taking something sweet and delicious and she's like taking a flower or taking a wood and not shying away from it being a wood. What I mean by that is sometimes when you have woody aromatic fragrances, you smell like 6 different woods and they all come together to be something woody and fresh and delicious and sexy. But what I like about Kristy is she stays true to whatever note she really wants to feature. So if she's featuring oud, she's going to use other notes to accentuate and not hide. If she's using something creamy and sweet, she's going to use things to accentuate and not hide, to elevate. And when she wants something to smell like a tree, it's going to smell like a tree. And she really elevates nature's natural luxury. And I love that. And so what with she is we wanted it to be something that was lemony and sweet and a little bit bright and sparkly, but focusing on the kind of deeper, smokier aspects of a lot of these notes. So there's Lapsang Souchong in here. There's a beautiful beeswax note. For a little bit of resins, there's black copal. There's a lot of other notes in here. There's her gorgeous vanilla, and she created a beautiful lemon blossom accord to work with the citruses, and there's a vintage lemongrass in here, and she bought the last of the lemongrass, which is why this is a limited batch. I know that she recently made, I think a few months ago, a new batch of this, and once she runs out of the lemongrass, it will be out of production. I don't know how much she has available. I don't know if she has enough to make 500 bottles or 5 bottles, so I don't know how much lemongrass she has, but I do know that she bought a specific vintage lemongrass. I believe it was from 1972. It's an older lemongrass because of the way that it smelled and specifically worked with this scent. Now, the reason why I'm mentioning the vintage lemongrass and the Lapsang Souchong and all of those things is all of those notes came together with this gorgeous, gorgeous oud scent. And like Jasmine oud, this doesn't have the intimidating, challenging aspects of oud, but it has the dark, mysterious, aromatic, just gorgeous, alluring aspects of oud. And it's really prominent and front and center, especially when you search for it. And that's why I love this as my favorite oud fragrance, because it really is such a sensual and alluring oud, but it has a lot of other beautiful aspects to it that come together and celebrate every note. But I do like how you can specifically pick up the oud in here. It's really quite sexy and gorgeous. Might be surprising to you guys is my favorite rose fragrance in my collection. Now, I've talked to you guys about Armani Privé Rose d'Arabie. That is not my favorite rose fragrance. That is, in my opinion, a masterpiece of a fragrance, but not a dominant rose. So when I was thinking about my favorite dominant rose fragrance, I really had to think about what rose I loved the most. And I mean, there's so many different rose fragrances. I am working on a rose video. I want to finish my tea video first. And I decided that the rose that I like to smell on myself the most And also I get excited when I smell it in other fragrances is the Taif. I think the most perfect and wearable representation of that is Taif from Ormond Jane. Now I have Elixir, I don't have the intense version. I have the intense version, Intensivo. I don't have the Elixir, there we go. But I love this one. This really celebrates and accentuates the beautiful nuances of this rose. It's light and airy, semi-aquatic, a little bit fruity, a little bit. And the date in here, I think, really kind of rounds it out and celebrates the just beautiful, just unique qualities of this specific rose. I don't want to go into this one too much because, like I said, I did do a review of this. I also did a review comparing the intensive, I think it's the Intensivo and this one, so I will link those videos below if you're curious. But what I like about this rose is I love rose in all of its ways. I love jammy roses. I love big velvety red roses. I love tea roses. I love garden roses. I love aquatic roses. But for me, when I smell a rose, I like it to have a bit of a clarity to it. I think you can really pick up some greenness, some sharpness. It's almost like you're smelling, oops, didn't mean to kick that. It's almost like you're smelling a bit of the stems and the thorns. And I also like roses to be a little bit more effervescent. They smell a little bit sexier on the skin, and there's just something so perfect about Ormond Jane's Taif. I viciously love this fragrance. So I had to include this as my favorite rose because currently it is my most favorite rose. It's my most wearable rose. I also think it's a great shared rose. So if you're looking for a rose that's really good at being more masculine or more feminine and can also be worn anywhere, any time of year, this is excellent. Kazemi from House of Matriarch could easily have also been on this list, but because the Taif rose is my favorite, it really had to be this scent. We'll get some of my other favorite notes out of the way. So let's go with my favorite tea fragrance. As I knock things over. Now, you guys know how much I love tea. I'm obviously working on my tea fragrance videos. I'm almost done. I've got to do my herbal tinctures video coming up soon. I'm debating if I want to invest in like a $400 bottle of a mate tea fragrance or a $300 bottle of a mate tea fragrance for you guys. I am so curious about this brand. It's like a limited number of scents. So we will see if I blind buy that. We'll see. However, this is, I'm pretty sure, a discontinued fragrance, and if you know me, you know this is going to be it. It's Kilian's Imperial Tea. Good Lord, this is such a beautiful scent. Now, obviously, Elizabeth Arden's green tea, Bulgari Eau de Vert, is quite literally my signature scent. If you meet me out in the wild, there's a high likelihood I'm going to smell like that because I have a travel atomizer and it's always in my bag, and I'm like reapplying that scent if my fragrance goes away. So I'm likely smelling like that or like eccentric molecules. But when it comes down to quite literally translating my favorite tea to a scent in a way that's successful and beautiful, Imperial Tea is gorgeous. Now, I really do not like every single fragrance from Kilian. I think some of them are way overhyped and way overpriced, to be completely honest. However, what Kilian does with tea I find to be fantastic, and I am horrified that they discontinued this fragrance because this fragrance is gorgeous. So this is a jasmine tea fragrance, and the addition of oak moss. Now, oak moss, in my opinion, can do one of two things. If it is added to a tea fragrance, it can help mimic the slightly oxidized taste and fermentation of an oolong tea. So it can make a tea fragrance smell like an oolong tea, or it can help enhance a tea fragrance be an oolong and not a green tea. Or what it can do, if balanced and blended properly, is it can make a green tea fragrance smell a little bit more photorealistic. And I don't mean photorealistic and quite literally photorealistic, but if you overbrew certain teas, they become acidic and bitter. And it is a kind of oak mossy green sharp bitterness. And I like my jasmine green teas to be slightly bitter. And with the addition of oak moss in this fragrance, which makes this my favorite, is it has that oak moss note that doesn't pull as an oolong jasmine tea, which I have and drink and love, so I definitely can discern the difference. It instead smells like a green jasmine tea that is slightly overbrewed, which is one of my favorite ways to drink it. So I love that because this kind of smells slightly more photorealistic as a way I like to drink my teas, and it's just beautiful. And also the addition of oak moss again pulls this as more of a shared scent and elevates it as more of a luxurious experience and something that would command more money. Now this is discontinued. I am trying to find a backup bottle or two of this. However, if I can't find a backup bottle of this ever, Fragonage Jasmine Pearl d'Ete is a beautiful, I would say, runner-up. It's not the same, but it does have a lot of the same beautiful nuances that this fragrance does, so I will have something that smells like my jasmine green tea that I love. But my favorite tea fragrance is most definitely Imperial Tea from Perfumes. Now, honey is another note that I talk about a lot, and it is a note that I love. However, my favorite Holy Grail honey fragrance has been discontinued. It was from La Ocitane. It was honey gentle water. It smelled like if you had a cup of hot water and you just took a spoonful of honey and just mixed it, like that's what it smelled like. It was beautiful. It smelled so good on the skin. I used to layer that with the like solid perfume of like the amber paste that you would get from like New Age shops, like in those little soapstone little guys. I used to wear those for like years. I got a little burnt out from fragrances. So for a while, I think like a year or two, I was only wearing those. And then I bought a bottle of the honey gentle water, and then I was wearing that forever. And then I transitioned back into wearing fragrances like nonstop. However, what I love about honey is the flavor of honey. Like I like a lot of different honeys. I actually love palmetto honey. It kind of tastes like pipe tobacco. It's very interesting. It tastes very good. When I smell a honey note in a fragrance, of course I like that gentle, sweet, light honey, but if I can't get honey gentle water, I want something that has all of the nuances of honey. I want it to smell like propolis. I want it to smell like pollen. I want it to smell like honey. I want it to smell like royal jelly. I want it to smell waxy. I want it to smell a little bit balsamic. I want it to have a variety of nuances. I want it to smell like every part of the bee. And Bee from Zoologist is excellent, but I still think the best honey fragrance currently in my collection is Mellifera from Sycomore. And I really love this fragrance a lot. Now, I remember when this fragrance house was first launched, I was really excited for him, and I blind bought this scent. I decided to get the 50 ml. I think this cost me like $200 or $300 or $400. I forget how much the 50 ml was. I quite literally blind bought this full retail price for the 50 ml. Again, I don't remember how much it cost me. This is a near natural perfume. But I was like, I'm gonna support this. I'm excited to support brands like this. And I love honey, so we'll see how this goes. And I was so impressed. I love this one so much. And I think it is a beautiful, very complex, but still honey scent. So this is my favorite honey fragrance. I don't wear this one too much because I'm very mindful of it, but I do love to wear this, and I do love to blend this as well. 5 more fragrances to go. So these are more on the kind of conceptual side, I guess. So I have like my favorite mature fragrance, my favorite expensive fragrance, my favorite masculine favorite, my favorite hype fragrance, and my favorite fragrance I love to smell on myself, or, you know, things like that. So we'll start with the most mature fragrance in my collection. Now, when I chose this scent, it wasn't just like my favorite mature scent, Scent Memory, the most gorgeous fragrance. This is one that I also wanted to include because I get excited to wear this. The first time I smelled this, I was so enraptured with it. And it's a fragrance that I think more people need to try, especially if you love those more mature and elegant compositions. We all know the ones. And it's from Armani Privé, and it's New York. This scent is beautiful. It's soft and powdery and elegant and elevated. There's something about it that's cozy but still very sophisticated. And I just love the way that this smells. It smells so good. I do love powdery fragrances. I think that you guys know I love powdery fragrances at this point. I love powder in all of its varieties, when it smells like baby wipes, when it smells like fresh violet candies, when it smells like old stale lipstick. There's a variety of different ways powdery scents can go. And I think in this way it's very chic and soft and beautiful and elegant and elevated. And this is such a gorgeous scent. And I think of all of the more higher end lines from designer houses, so you know, you have Tom Ford's Private Blend, you have Maison Lancome's, you have Lancome's Maison Lancome, you have Dior's line, you have Chanel's line. I think Armani's line is one of the more underappreciated kind of higher end designer fragrance lines, and they have some of the more wearable scents and some of the most beautiful fragrances. And this one to me is a beautiful and sophisticated and chic and gorgeous scent. So if you're looking for something to try and you like soft, powdery, mature, sophisticated fragrances, this one is beautiful. It has a slight kind of carroty sweetness to it that really pairs beautifully with the florals and the powder. It's just really gorgeous. To go into this one, I think people are tired of talking about this one, but if you know me, you know this is my favorite hyped fragrance and my favorite nose. Francis Kurkdjian Baccarat Rouge 540, the Eau de Parfum. I do really love the extrait because the addition of the bitter almond I think makes it super special. But the wow factor for people that enjoy this style of fragrance, I don't think you can beat the Baccarat Rouge. So, and if you guys know me, Francis Kurkdjian is my favorite nose, so we're gonna put that one away. I don't think I need to spend too much time on that. Now, the fragrance I love to smell on myself, this one, every time I wear it, I smell it all the time, and I do love a pink pepper note, and it's Le Labo's Bay Rose 26. This is the city exclusive for Chicago. This is beautiful and sexy and peppery and aromatic and just so gorgeous. And quite literally, every time I wear this, I will be smelling myself. That sounds so weird. This is another one of my top 5 fragrances in my collection, and this is also a fragrance that if I had to pare down my collection, obviously if it's a top 5, I would not be without. It is so, so beautiful. I get a lot of compliments on this one. I like the way I smell when I wear it, and I think it's a beautiful, I mean absolutely beautiful representation of one of my favorite notes in perfumery, which is pink pepper. And I think it does so viciously, gorgeously, in such a sexy and captivating way. I don't know if you guys can tell how I'm sitting, but I'm perched like a bird. I'm like sitting like a parakeet in this chair. So the last two we have is my favorite masculine fragrance and my favorite expensive fragrance. So my favorite masculine fragrance in my collection, I think a lot of people expect me to choose like Le Male from Jean Paul Gaultier, because that one is definitely one of my most favorites. But I also wanted to include my favorite to wear, and I do really like wearing men's fragrances, and I kept going back to Green Irish Tweed from Creed. Now I love this fragrance, and I like anything that smells like this, so obviously all the other fragrances that are much more affordable than the House of Creed I enjoy too. I've talked about this fragrance before. When I first started collecting fragrances, I almost purchased this, but I decided to get Light Blue from Dolce & Gabbana. There's something about this that smells so good. Yes, it is marketed to men, it is a men's fragrance, but there's something about the way that this scent smells that I think smells really beautiful and attractive on anybody, and I do like smelling this way. So this is my favorite men's fragrance in my collection that I love to wear, and I feel very confident and sexy when I wear that scent. And my favorite expensive fragrance in my collection is Amber Oud from Raja Parfums. Now I have a lot of more expensive fragrances than this, and I could obviously have chosen Britannia from Raja. I could have chosen a few other from Xerjoff. I probably could have chosen Absolute from Royal Crown, or Oud Jasmine from Royal Crown could have been the other fragrance that I chose. But the reason why I wanted to choose Amber Oud is I know the House of Raja is one of the houses that people have a lot of real polarizing feelings with, and I'm not going to debate whether or not the price point of Raja is worth it. I think that is completely up to you guys. If you think that this house is overpriced, same thing with any of these other fragrances. You guys decide what's worth it or not. But for me particularly, when I think of the House of Raja, I think of an elevated experience. And I also like to think of something that is beautiful and timeless and gorgeous and wearable. And as a collector of Raja, I don't own every fragrance and I won't own every fragrance. But if I were to sell every Raja fragrance I had, I probably would not sell, Kingdom of Bahrain, because I love that one too. But I think as a collector of Raja, you almost need to have Amber Oud in your collection. I think this is a shining example of why Raja is so loved. This is a cult classic fragrance. I think everybody knows about Amber Oud from Raja. Everyone's like, oh yeah, there it is. But I think this is such a beautiful and sexy and wearable fragrance. And if I hadn't worked on She, this would have been my favorite oud. But I find this to be more of an ambery, warm, sensual fragrance that has oud in it than something that really accentuates and celebrates oud. But what I love about this is just how gorgeous and sexy, and it's so perfect to me. And I did buy this. I've purchased every single Raja except one, and the one that I didn't purchase was given to me as a gift from a friend of mine. So I have not been given any bottles of Raja from the brand. I'm not opposed to reviewers or content creators getting bottles from the brand. I know that a lot of people don't like that. I'd much prefer to purchase them, to be completely honest, and I'm perfectly capable of purchasing them. If they ever offered them to me, I probably would accept, because I am a fan of the brand and I do invest a lot of money in the brand. But I don't need the brand to send me anything. And I feel more comfortable reviewing this brand for you guys, purchasing them, because I know that they do reach out and they offer content creators free bottles, and their bottles are very expensive, and I know that there's a lot of feelings around that. So this is one of the brands where I'd much prefer to purchase the bottles to review, but I wouldn't be opposed to it. I mean, I've talked before about free bottle reviews and things like that. But when I think about collecting a brand, I think about myself as a collector of Raja, which means I am a discerning collector of Raja. There are some fragrances and some fragrance houses that I just want to own them all for YouTube purposes so that I could have content for you guys that I like to wear. And then there are some houses that I collect that I'm very discerning of. I'm not gonna own every fragrance. To be perfectly honest, there's no need for me to own every bottle. I think that it would diminish the quality and the value for me as a collector to have every bottle, if that makes sense. Some things I want everything, like Royal Crown. I want to own every bottle of their fragrances just because that's how I feel about that particular house. But I love Raja just as much, and I don't want every bottle. I love Xerjoff just as much. I don't want every bottle. I love the house of Chanel. I don't want every bottle. There are certain houses that I'm way more discerning of what fragrances I add to my collection and at what speed. And Raja is a fragrance house that I add at a slower speed because I try to be more mindful. But that doesn't mean that I don't love the house. And if they offered me something, I would be very grateful, but I would also be very wary as well, because I know how a lot of you guys feel about free bottles from Raja. And again, I'd much prefer to purchase. I've talked to you guys before in videos about how I would prefer to purchase fragrances to review. Well, I'm very blessed and grateful to be given the opportunity to be sent things. But Raja has never sent me anything, and that is completely okay. Now, when I think about my favorite expensive bottle, I think about not just my favorite expensive bottle, but I also think about why that's my favorite bottle. And so when I think about an expensive bottle, I think about it as an investment. And I'm not thinking about it as an investment in dollar bills, but thinking about it as an investment in my overall happiness in my collection. Do I feel like my collection is more well-rounded and I feel more complete with that fragrance in my collection? Am I happier that I spent the money on that fragrance in my collection, or would I feel like my fragrance is emptier or has a hole in it if that fragrance wasn't there? And that's, to me, what Amber Oud is. As somebody who loves the House of Raja, this was a must-have for me as somebody who enjoys wearing this fragrance and as somebody who thinks this is a shining example of why Raja is so beloved. It is a beautiful fragrance, it's an elevated fragrance, it's a gorgeous scent, and I think that this kind of proves what he is able to do. Now, not every fragrance that he creates is like that, and that's totally fine. But I think that when you look at, in my opinion, a crowning, beautiful example of what Raja Parfums is capable of as a luxury, high-end, very expensive fragrance house, I think Amber Oud is a shining jewel in that house, as well as, although a very expensive fragrance, not the most expensive fragrance. And I think that's why I love that fragrance so much. It's wearable, it's beautiful, it's well blended, it's well crafted, it smells amazing. And as a very expensive bottle of perfume, I think it's my favorite expensive bottle of perfume because it's more than just a fragrance. It's like an addition to my fragrance collection. It's more than just a scent. It's a part of something that means something to me, which is my fragrance collection, which is me collecting, which is this hobby that I love so much. Like that, everybody has their own different ideals when it comes to that. So that's a me thing. So anyway, guys, that is it. That's a little bit of a deep dive into my fragrance collection, some of my favorites. Again, most complimented favorite white florals, things like that. I hope you enjoyed this video. I know it was on the longer side. I would love to know what you guys think. Do you agree with this video and my choices, or did you guys think I would choose other scents? Or if you would like me to do a part 2 of this video, if you were hoping for other favorites or other choices to be mentioned, if you're like, oh, I wanted your favorite almond, your favorite vanilla, your favorite woody or woody aromatic. I don't know why I was going to say woody aromatic. Aromantic, there we go. No, woody aromatic. I would love to know if you guys had additional categories you'd like me to showcase for you guys. I'd be more than happy to talk more about my collection. I love doing this. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time. Bye.